everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Black Liberation Tech podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Renee Jordan, and today we're going to do a Q&A. And so I'm going to jump right on in. Sustaining momentum through the hard parts of the journey. Moving forward after a major hurdle like a prospectus defense, a career pivot, or a massive project requires intense resilience. You noted that flexibility isn't about giving up, it's about adapting in ways that still honor your goals and values. What practical strategies or mindsets do you recommend for staying resilient and continuing to move on up when the process gets exhausting? Whew, that is a heavy question. So, after you've crossed a major milestone, you can get tired. You can be like, you know what? I'm finished with this. I don't want to do this anymore. When is this over? I would have to say that I would encourage you to reflect and remember, even go back over your journal. Hopefully, you kept a log. Hopefully, you kept a trail. Hopefully, you kept a picture, whether it was a vision board, whether it was a daily journal, whether you had a blog post, whether you stood up and you shared your goals with someone and said, this is what I want to do. Remember what you set out to do and keep going in that direction. Getting a PhD was a long process for me. I worked full time and I did all of the things that made me a strong candidate for a PhD, meaning I had practice doing research while I was in school. I did graduate research assistantships. I did internships. I presented at local, regional, state, national, and international conferences while I was a graduate research assistant, while I was in school, while I was also working. And so I kept going because I remembered what I told my nieces, my nephews, my parents, my brothers, sisters, family members, those in my community. I told everyone I was going to get a PhD. And it's not to say that they would be fine if I decided not to do it, but I remembered why I wanted to do it in the first place. My purpose for getting a PhD was so that I could go as far as I could in my educational journey. That had to switch from me wanting to do it for everybody who looked like me to me wanting to do it simply for myself because I had the opportunity to hear the reasons why others were getting a PhD, and a woman said that she was doing it for fun. And I said, oh my gosh, if she can do it for fun, surely I can do it because it's something that I want to do for myself. In reflection, I had the opportunity and I took advantage of it. There were not too many generations ago, to be exact, my grandmother was not able to obtain a college diploma. And so me being able to have the opportunity to not only get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, another master's degree, and then a PhD was like, you know what? They're giving me this opportunity, opportunities that were denied to others, opportunities that others in my family weren't able to take advantage of. I did have a cousin on my dad's side who earned a PhD as well. So I'm not the first in the family to get a PhD, but I was the one who was seeking out one at the time. And so I wanted to do that for myself. And I wanted to do that for myself so I could have more opportunities available to me. I wanted to see how far I could go. I wanted to get to the end of this series of questions that I had that led me on this journey. And that is what motivated me to keep going. And a part of that motivation was recognizing that all of the preparation that I needed to make it through the program had already taken place. So with each milestone, if you will, I already completed the work. I already prepared. I already learned the lessons. I already read what needed to be read. I already demonstrated that I was capable of doing research projects time and time again before I got to the prospectus. And that allowed me to be successful at that point. And knowing that I made it this far, I can keep going and see it through to the end and actually complete my dissertation and defend it. Because I saw the steps that I took, I had record of it, and I knew that I would be able to essentially do it again. And I had the support of my committee in order to do so. Now, the resilience piece comes in when it comes to needing to make adjustments. The resilience piece comes in when it comes to taking breaks. One of the things that I would tell people, and I would say, so that I would tell them to encourage them, not to show off, was that I would take Saturdays to do absolutely nothing. No volunteering, no going out to do anything related to schoolwork. I would vegetate. I would treat myself to breakfast, brunch, dinner. If I connected with someone, I was connecting with my friends in order to talk and catch up and see how they were doing. But I would take that time to make sure that I did the things that I enjoyed for myself outside of school, outside of work, outside of whatever adult responsibilities came with my journey. And so being able to take that time to just be the fun Renee, to just be the silly Renee, to be the relaxed Renee, to be myself, to chill, that allowed me to keep going because I would have a break. I would have a time to relax. I had scheduled time to socialize outside of work, school, etc. And so a part of being resilient is allowing yourself the flexibility to not only adjust what's going on with your goals in terms of academic goals or professional goals, but life goals. Like, what is it that you want to do? And so some of those other breaks that I took after I finished collecting my data, I went to Hawaii. And if you go through my episodes, you'll see that if you go through my YouTube or social media, you'll see that there are video clips of me driving through Maui. Yes, I went to Maui afterwards. I went to, let's see, after I finished collecting my data, I went to Honolulu, Hawaii. So I went to Waikiki and I enjoyed myself for almost a week. I told my girlfriends, hey, y'all can meet me here. I'm going to be here from this date to this date. That's how I do girl trips. Meet me there. This is where I'm staying. This is the flight I'm taking. Let me know, your accommodations. That way we can show up and we can meet each other there and things will already be taken care of. And so I was able to meet a girlfriend in Hawaii after collecting my dissertation data. And I was able to do that. Why? Because I worked and I saved money. And I also kept my eye out on flight sales. And someone nudged me and said, hey, Renee, look at the tickets to Hawaii. And I said, oh my gosh. And so I went and had a good time. And so a part of that flexibility requires having balance. And you decide what that balance looks like for you. Some people may not take breaks and they keep going, but also some people, they don't take breaks, they keep going. And I don't know how much of a balance they have. I'm not sure how content they are, even when they are successful, if it's satisfying, if they're content. I reached a goal. I reached a part of a goal. I made progress. I'm going to stop and celebrate. And so that helps me to encourage myself and not want to give up. And it also allows me to honor my values because I value life and what it has to offer and the opportunities that it brings, not only in terms of academic and professional, but enjoyment. And I often reflect on what the data says about those in Europe who take and vacation months at a time. And I say, if they can do months, I could do a week. I could do a few days here and there. At one point, I was taking off a week, like the last week of each month or something. And whether that was to go to a conference or to go on a vacation or to take off so I can focus on writing, I put in that flexibility when it came to my schedule and my calendar so that I could ensure that I had a good quality of life as I went through this arduous process of getting a PhD. And so while you're working on big projects and big goals, I hope that a part of your goals and a part of your values include enjoying time by yourself and with those you love. So, with all that being said, thank you again for listening to another episode of the Black Liberation Tech podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Renee Jordan. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and share, rate, and review the podcast to help it become more discoverable. And until next time, take care. Bye bye.